Friday, July 18th here on the Just Baseball Show. That's Arm Layden. I am Peter Apple, and this is part two. One thing to watch for every team in Major League Baseball going forward in the second half. And because it's part two, this time we are doing the National League, but we also are going to go over a blockbuster trade, kind of. And then I'm going to end it all with my last word. And it's all brought to us by the sportsbook born in Vegas. Remember, folks, download BetMGM, whether that be on iOS or Android, and use promo code JUSTBASEBALL. Why? First bet offer up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first wager loses. But remember, gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. Aram, I know this episode is for July 18th, but Thursday, July 17th is a special day. Happy birthday, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I thought you were going to just say it's actually the emoji date. If you go to the calendar emoji, it's just always on July 17th. I think that's like the only cool thing about it.
I didn't know
But
that.
no, I appreciate that, man. It was fun leading into this, just having the All-Star week with everybody. Had a great time and got a nice sleep in last night. I got to sleep in a little bit this morning, which was nice after a really fun but nonstop weekend slash early week. So the fact that it ended with this blockbuster, I didn't even know how we were going to be able to keep up.
Perfect segue. A little bit before, so it wasn't the best birthday present, but it was maybe a day before. Adam Frazier. Adam Frazier is headed to Kansas City in exchange for minor league infielder Cam Devaney. We almost lost the story, which is what so what are the radar, but this is a big deal, according to you.
It's so funny because I don't even know why I had a reaction to it online, but I just said I'd rather just have Cam Devaney. And I guess Pirates fans were like, hell yeah. Like it ended up getting way more traction than I thought. But it is a funny trade because Adam Frazier must just be the GOAT clubhouse guy. Like at this point, I don't really know what he brings to the table, other than being maybe the GOAT clubhouse guy and like a fine utility piece off the bench. I guess that's what they're looking for in Kansas City right now.
Here,
I'm very interested to see how they utilize him in his 82 WRC plus. Devaney, they were trying to play him in the outfield a little bit because he has just been really good in AAA this year. I mean, he's got an OPS over 900. He's hit 18 home runs, and he's a good shortstop. So the swing and miss is definitely a big problem. I think like there's a ton of swing and miss, and I think that's what's really held him back as a 28-year-old in AAA. But as a guy with plus EVs who can play shortstop, obviously there was no opportunity to really get him in the fold. Third base was also filled, so I guess they just felt like it was better off to move him to an opportunity where he can actually get some reps, especially when the Pirates trade IKF. Look, we've seen Jake Mangum emerge as a 29-year-old rookie and have success, with the Rays. I think where the game's at nowadays, guys in their late 20s can absolutely emerge. But I like it as a shot from the Pirates, a guy that again has plus EVs and good defense at short. But Adam Frazier continues to be a player that teams covet on the major league side. I find that fascinating.
yeah, I don't really get it. Adam Frazier this year in 78 games is slashing 255, 318, 336, and he's got a 0.1 F war. He's played most of his games at second base, which he likely will not be doing on the Royals because, of course, he is Jonathan India, but he has played a little bit of outfield, left field, and right field. Right field seems reserved for Jack Caglione for the remainder of the season, but left field right now is manned by John Rave because Michael Massey and Mark Canha have both hit the IL. So I think what they're looking for is just a bench bat who can play left field for the time being, be a little bit better than John Rave. But it
Yeah.
does feel like the prospect, based on what you're saying, is too much for a left field fill in bench bat.
Yeah, I guess they just, they figured, hey, where are we going to get this guy in? And he's 28 years old, and let's give him an opportunity. And I'm glad they did. But yeah, I mean, if you're the Pirates, hey, you got a free shot at a prospect who maybe makes enough contact to be a solid utility piece as well with 5, 6 years of control.
So I view this episode as a three-course meal. The main course is one thing to watch for every National League team in the second half. The appetizer was the Adam Frazier trade. So basically, what that was is we just ordered straight up broccoli and I'm a fan of Brussels sprouts, but sometimes you get some bad Brussels sprouts. Like that was the appetizer, and now we're going for the ribeye, and I feel like my last word will be a nice dessert to end it. So let's start in the National League with the Philadelphia Phillies. Do you want to start or do you want me to?
You go first.
So I have a couple here, and I wouldn't say that this is the most pressing, but I am interested in it. And that is, can Aaron Nola bounce back from his injury and return to form in the second half? Because the Phillies, it's not like they need him desperately, because, of course, Zach Wheeler might end up just winning the Cy Young. Christopher Sanchez is probably going to finish top 5 in Cy Young voting. Ranger Suarez has been fantastic. And Jesus Luzardo has hit a little bit of a slide since his red hot start to the season, but he is still a solid starter. But right now, Taijuan Walker is the 5th guy. And of course, you have Mick Abel. But if Aaron Nola can be Aaron Nola, not only does that make the Phillies rotation a lot more dangerous, but he's been going in game 2 in all of the Phillies postseason games for a very long time. This is still Aaron Nola at the end of the day. So right now, you look at the Phillies rotation, you say they might need a starter to fill in for Taijuan Walker, but couldn't it just be Aaron Nola? So I think that Aaron Nola's return could prove a ton of upside for the Phillies in the second half, or they just stay status quo, which is still a good team. But Aaron Nola could be one of the best deadline acquisitions for any team if he just comes back and is the same Aaron Nola that he was.
I agree. I mean that's a huge wrinkle in this thing, and they're paying him a lot of money to be a guy that they can rely on. And I think it's a testament to the rotation that he's someone that we're not thinking as like, oh, they really need him back. But ultimately, especially if you want to really make this push down the stretch here and separate yourselves from the Mets, who to half game gap right now that they're ahead. You need Nola instead of Taijuan Walker throwing every 5th day, and you need Nola throwing pretty well. So I think that's a big aspect of this thing. The other side for me, and I know you had mentioned like when we're putting the sheet together and some of the highlights that you put up was Bryson Stott. Is he going to get going? I think that's a huge
Yeah.
component of this for sure because he's got a 79 WRC plus, and if you look across the rest of the lineup, the next worst is 90 and Max Kepler. I think that's obviously a big part of it, but I'm also just the thing that keeps coming to my mind is, do we see vintage Dombrowski finally?
Hmm.
Like we've alluded to it the last couple of years. Dombrowski's been aggressive, but we haven't seen the all in, like, I don't even care who the prospect is. Let's go get a superstar, the best player available, and let's go win a World Series. We talked about how this core, this is probably the back end of being able to run it with this, Schwarber, Harper. Schwarber's going to be a free agent. Bohm, Castellanos, Real Muto core. Trey Turner, of course, as well, but he's going to be there for a little bit longer, and he's still playing at a really high level. These guys aren't getting any younger, and I think you have a GM who's well aware that Wheeler's 35. We talked about he's going to retire at the end of the 2027 season. I feel like this is a spot where he may just say fuck it, and we see the biggest trade Dombrowski has made since taking over the Phillies. Does that mean they move in Andrew Painter? Probably not. But look, I want, like, that might be my hot take of the deadline. Is like, I don't know what would have to be out there, but maybe that makes something that wasn't even out there available. I just, that's my big question. Do we see an overly eager Dombrowski that we haven't maybe seen since before the Phillies?
So you made a ton of good points there about a lot of the Phillies. Their contracts are expiring soon, and this team is a little bit older. So truly, the window to win is right now. But how about Dombrowski's window to be a general manager? He's 68 years old. His contract ends in 2027, and we could potentially have a lockout on our hands. So we're looking at 2025 and 2026. Is Dombrowski going to sign a new contract after those years when he's 70 years old? Maybe, maybe not. So this could be nearing the end of his job as a general manager, just as he continues to age out of our
Yeah,
game.
it's actually a great point too. I mean, yeah, how long do you want to go into this stressful job? He's really good at it, and I know he enjoys it. There's not very many GMs who have a better relationship with their players and former players than Dave Dombrowski does. But Yeah, I mean, imagine it's got to have some wear and tear on the mind. I couldn't imagine doing it for as long as he's done it. It's a good point. So I wonder, and I'm not saying you just make a trade just to make it,
No.
but this is arguably the best farm system that he's had to work with. You have, Aiden Miller, you have Justin Crawford, you have then also a McAble who's really reclaimed some value this year. Then you have Andrew Painter, then you have Arun Escobar, and you have Eduardo Taid. Like these are all top 100 or borderline top 100 talents. They could go do something crazy. I don't know what that would necessarily be, but they could put together a package that makes even, I think the most apprehensive teams in terms of letting a player go willing to listen.
The Phillies are going to be very fascinating to watch at the deadline. Let's move over to the New York Mets. We'll alternate, so I'll go first for the Mets. My one thing to watch for them is Brett Beatty, Mark Vientos, and Francisco Alvarez. What do their second halves look like? Because the Mets are a very good team. They have a very good offense. Sean Manaea and Kodai Senga are back. And I actually have another thing to watch that we may talk about at the end of this with those two pitchers. But the bullpen, they're going to add pieces. Dave Stearns, one of the best general managers in the sport, is going to add to this team. But I think a very important thing to watch for the Mets just moving forward are these young guys, Beatty, Vientos, and Francisco Alvarez, because Beatty and Vientos are supposed to be a part of the young core that they can build around with free agents, right? And Beatty has been heating up a little bit. Vientos has been playing a little bit better. Can they use those late slight surges to catapult them into solid second halves? Because then if they can, that lineup gets a lot deeper and a lot harder for a lot of these pitchers to work through when it's already a good offense, but it's more top heavy. But can you get deeper with those three guys? And Francisco Alvarez was sent down midway through the season because he was dealing with a lot of stuff. And Luis Torrens has filled in. And he's filled in and done a pretty nice job. But you want Francisco Alvarez's upside there, not only at the plate for a guy who has 30 plus home run power when it's all working, but also the defense. He's become an
Yep.
excellent receiver as well. So while Luis Torrens has been a good fill in, you want Francisco Alvarez there. You want Beatty. You want Vientos. You want these guys to establish themselves as real members of the Mets, especially then in the playoffs, so you can rely on them. And if you can't rely on any of them, what does then Dave Stearns do with the deadline? I know it's a very short time until then, but if he then does roll with those three, I think they'll be instrumental from making the Mets a solid playoff team with World Series aspirations or potentially a World Series favorite if all those guys are turning on all cylinders or firing on all cylinders, excuse me.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm just so fascinated by the Vientos Beatty situation. And Beatty's, holding his own. He's been fine. Like he's been solid. 94 WRC plus. He's a full win player so far. Like if he's hitting close to league average and defending pretty well, it's going to be solid. And you hope he gets better and better as the year progresses, which I think he has in a lot of ways. You like that. Vientos, it's been a different story, but we saw how big he was for them down the stretch last year and through the postseason. If that's a guy that gets going for him, I mean, that's a game changer. Mauricio has been good when he's been on the field. So I'm fascinated by that whole situation there. But I also look at the pitching side too, because that Sean Manaea, they don't get as far as they made it last year without Sean Manaea. But Sean Manaea also threw more innings than like he's ever thrown from this new release point that clearly has created this crossfire, miserable at bat for hitters that especially left on left. And I mean, the results don't lie. But he threw 181 and two-thirds innings last year, plus the playoffs, which was, I believe, another. I mean, I think it had to be at least another 15, no, almost 20 innings, another 20 innings there. That's a lot of a workload for him. And clearly we saw the repercussions this year where he dealt with the oblique issue and then tried to come back and had a little bit of a delay. And then now they're easing him back into action. In his first outing at the big league level, he was dynamite out of the bullpen for 3 1/3 innings. That's a guy that if he's throwing at last year's level, and I don't think it's a question of the ability. I don't think last year was a fluke. It's just whether his body can hold up after such a large uptick in workload. I think that's a guy that can once again really catapult them. Whether you trust what Holmes has done this year, which I think a lot of people do, but there's been turbulent moments, or David Peterson, which I think you have to buy what he's doing at this point too. I want someone that I know has been there, done that in the postseason, and Manaea just did. So that's the one guy really in this rotation that you can say that about. Senga's disgusting. The numbers, I don't think people are giving him enough love. The fact he's got a 1.39, but he's got to stay healthy, and we haven't really seen him fully do that in the postseason either. Manaea is a guy he's tried and tested and did it on the big stage against some really tough lineups. That's the guy I trust as much as anyone in this rotation, but he's got to be available and he's got to be throwing at the same velocity and things like that. So that's the guy I'm looking at that I think can really push them over the top like he did last year. And it's a better rotation this year.
And the Mets, they've been so good to start the year, but they have so many players, like we both mentioned, that can unlock further potential for them, right? If Sean Manaea and Kodai Senga, let's say Kodai Senga just probably not going to pitch to a 1.39 ERA, but if he can pitch to a high twos for the rest of the way, you're getting a borderline ace. And then Sean Manaea, you mentioned that as well. And then if all those young guys in the lineup can step up, maybe not Mark Vientos is quite back, but 80%. Brett Beatty just continuing to do what he does. Francisco Alvarez comes back up as 90% of what he was. This Mets team gets a whole lot dangerous. And those are all internal moves. Those are all guys that are just sitting on the team right now and really will decide, will the Mets become a World Series potential favorite or will they be a good playoff team? Because we know that the Mets, as currently constructed without any of those guys, are still very solid. So again, so much potential to unlock with the Mets in the second half. Let's move over to the Miami Marlins. Aram, you just wrote a great piece, which you could find on justbaseball.com. Thoughts on the Marlins? One thing to watch.
I mean, I think the thing to watch right now, it'll be answered pretty much right as the second half starts, and it's what they do with Edward Cabrera and Sandy Alcantara. I think that's the fascinating conundrum that Peter Bendix finds himself in because this team is clearly taking a big step forward this year, especially over the last few months. They've been playing good ball, and that's what I kind of detailed in the piece. They're obviously still a step or two away from, I think, being a team that you can look at as, oh, they could be the trendy wild card pick, but you can see the light at the end of the tunnel for the first time, I think, in a while. And all of a sudden, you can look at a middle infield and say, hey, those guys can stick there. Like those are guys that you build for with a handful of years of control. You can look at the catching situation and say that's actually somewhat sorted out. You can look at the outfield and say, oh, they actually have a couple pieces there, especially Kyle Stowers was an OPS over 900. The Marlins haven't really been in a situation like that. They have a closer in Ronnie Enriquez, who looks like he could be their guy too. So you all of a sudden you have these pieces that you finally look at and say, hey, you can build on those guys instead of just I felt like half court shots and just like I would say players that were just filling gaps in the meantime, kind of placeholders. So what do you do? Because Edward Cabrera has 3 years of control. So you could look at next year and the years beyond that and say, hey, this is a guy that can help us win ball games next year. And I think potentially surprise a lot of people. But at the same time, Edward Cabrera has never thrown over 100 innings at the big league level. I think the most innings he's ever thrown between the minor leagues and the major leagues is 110 innings. And he's throwing the best he has ever thrown by like a mile. He's been dominant over his last 12 starts. With 3.5 years of control, the Marlins could ask for a pretty penny for Edward Cabrera, who fortunately dodged a bullet with leaving the start with some elbow discomfort. MRI came back clean. They said he's not going to miss any IL or not going to miss any start anytime, not going to hit the IL. Could sell high on him. Sandy Alcantara, I think at this point, it makes no sense to trade him unless somebody is willing to really take a risk. You can hold really firm on your asking price with him. They don't need to dump the salary because they legitimately have zero money on the books next year. But what do you do there? If a team is willing to make a pretty competitive offer to still take a chance on a bounce back Sandy with 2.5 years of control, do you do it? I don't know. I think that would come off a little bit too much of a salary dump unless it's a really solid, I think, solid package. So I detailed that a lot more in the piece. So you can check out justbaseball.com. But I think what they do with those two players is going to be very indicative of where they feel like they're at and what they're willing to do. I think they do need a little bit more upper minors talent. So that's why I think Edward Cabrera could be the guy that they end up moving. And you hold on to the familiar face in Sandy and hope he bounces back next year. If you're playing well, that means he's throwing really well and maybe he's leading you to a surprising season. If he's throwing all right and you're not playing that well, it's still going to, I think, build back his value enough to where you can trade him and it wouldn't be much of a difference than selling low on him now. But I'm very fascinated to see what they do.
Is there anyone else on the Marlins that you think higher than 50% chance is getting traded?
Jesus Sanchez, I think, should be gone. And nothing against him. I think there's a lot of teams that he would be a decent addition for it. We just saw Adam Frazier get traded, right? So like I think his slightly above average offense and capability to play fine in the corner and you always have the chance that he could just get really hot because the power, the raw power is plus plus. I think plenty of teams are going to be interested in a player like that with multiple years of control. The Marlins have Stowers. The Marlins have, Griffin Conine will be back and healthy. And I think you look at what he was able to do. I think there's a lot of similarities in terms of the production to a Jesus Sanchez. You have Jacob Marcy, who is balling out in AAA. All these guys are cheaper, controllable, and you don't fully know what you have there in terms of there might be a little bit more. I think at this point, you know what Jesus Sanchez is, and there's still teams that are going to be, I think, willing to give something up for, a 1.5 WAR player. And then I think your boy Cal Quantrill, I think they'll take whatever they can get for him. I think that's a guy that they'll probably move. And then like an Anthony Bender, I'd be shocked if he's still on the roster there after the deadline.
So I knew the Marlins part of this episode was going to be mostly talking about selling. So I wanted to bring a more positive note on players on their team that I don't think are on the move. That'll be a fun narrative to watch for Marlins fans. And that is, can Agustin Ramirez or Liam Hicks win Rookie of the Year? Because right now, Liam Hicks is sixth in WRC plus among all rookies, third in the National League. He's got a 0.9 FWAR as well. He's played a lot of catcher, some DH, some first base, and Agustin Ramirez has really split his time between catcher and DH, and both have been above average bats this season. I think you look at Agustin Ramirez's profile and you say, well, the way he catapults himself into this conversation is improving on the defensive side, because you look at Baseball Savant and they are not exactly kind to
Yeah.
Agustin Ramirez's defense when it comes to blocking, when it comes to receiving, but the bat is for real. And then with Liam Hicks, the defense at both first and catcher has been all right, but the bat has been really solid. And because the National League Rookie of the Year race is so wide open, you would say, well, doesn't Jacob Mizorowski have a hold on this? Well, he's only made 5 starts. It's going to be really hard to win Rookie of the Year when at the end of the year, maybe he has 15 starts with 75 innings, right? And then you look at Drake Baldwin. He's been great with the bat, but not so unbelievable that nobody can catch him. So I think what's really cool about the Marlins is, yes, they will be selling off pieces. Marlins fans' favorite players will be on the move, and that is unfortunate. But you could have some new favorite players with Hicks and Agustin Ramirez that are hunting for the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, and I think that's the fun part is you actually have that's the thing is you look at who they're moving. It's mostly I think pieces that are ultimately inconsequential, and you have the middle infield that's a building block. And I think looking at that, Canado Lopez continue to prove that he looks like a solid everyday big league shortstop. Like he's on pace for a 3 WAR shortstop season here with 30 bags. Like if he's doing that, that's a shortstop you can build with. Xavier Edwards has been phenomenal since moving to second base. If the Marlins have their up the middle situation figured out from catcher to shortstop and second base, that's something that they probably haven't been able to say since Derek Jeter tore the team down in 2017. So I think that's something that's exciting, and I think that's something to monitor, whether they're in getting close to 500 or not. You finally are looking at pieces here that could be building blocks. And Stowers keep up the 900 OPS, even if it's 850. I mean, they haven't had a player with a WRC plus over 145 since Giancarlo Stanton like 3 times. So, I mean, he could have one of the best seasons a Marlin has had since like 2010.
Incredible. Moving on to the Braves. The trade deadline is going to be really interesting for the Atlanta Braves as their season has felt like it has crumbled. So, my question is, how many pieces do they sell and which ones? Because a lot of names have been floated, but the Braves were hovering around 500, a couple of games below for a while. So, it didn't feel like it would be a full teardown. But now, could Marcell Ozuna be on the move? Sean Murphy? I've heard Ozzy Albies' name potentially getting floated. You look at the rotation, and pretty much everybody is hurt right now. And I don't think that they would trade Spencer Strider, but could Chris Sale be on the move? Could Raisel Iglesias, Pierce Johnson, a lot of their elite bullpen arms? Could this truly be a full teardown?
I'm very fascinated. I think that the Ozunas of the world are definitely gone, but now his value is kind of tanked with the hip issue he's been dealing with. But like that's a guy that pending free agent makes all the sense in the world. I feel like the Chris Sale side of things is fascinating. I think there's a case to be made against it, but I also can understand listening. Iglesias, you mentioned, like, there's so many players that I think are more likely than not going to be on the move. But then you wonder, yeah, what about the guys with control, like a Murphy or an Albies with another year? That, like, do they just feel like they need to shake this roster up? And that's what I'm really fascinated by. I think the Braves might be the most interesting team at the deadline because the Diamondbacks, for example, are probably going to trade away all of those expiring players. Like that's mostly clear here. But the Braves, they have a lot of different situations that you could justify giving it another year next year and just saying, hey, we were a victim of circumstance, maybe health and different things. We're going to run it back. We're not going to trade Sean Murphy. He's going to be the new DH and backup catcher or split time with Baldwin. Or say, hey, we need to shake this roster up and we can get a haul for Murphy. We've got Drake Baldwin, as you mentioned. So I don't know. And I am very eager to see how Anthopoulos operates because this is not a position that we're used to seeing the Braves in. So I think that's definitely the number one thing for me too. But then the other is definitely what's up with Mike Harris? Can he get right? I mean, going into this year, I would have thought there's no way Mike Harris has, a below 3 WAR season. I just felt like the floor with him has just always been so high because he hits the ball so hard. The bat to ball has actually always been good from a contact rate perspective. He's just always been aggressive. And then the defense is phenomenal in center field. And, I felt like last year was kind of the rough year for him, and I felt like he'd bounce back and build on it. We're talking about a guy that had a 5 F4 season as a rookie, followed that with a 4 F4 season. Then it was 2 last year, and it's negative this year. I mean, he has been one of the worst qualified hitters in Major League Baseball. So it's just bizarre to see in his age 24 season. And that's got to be one of the bigger stories because if they don't feel like he can get right, I mean, I don't even know what you do there. You already extended him. I think obviously he has plenty of time and you got to start experimenting with things. It's been a lot of the same swing and a lot of the same looks, and he's just swinging at everything. A 2.7% walk rate is outrageous. So I just want to see, do they send him to AAA? Like, what do you do here? This player is just way too good to look like this. And what's crazy is even with the terrible season this year, and I think disappointing season last year, he still has a career WRC plus of 103. Like with his glove, if he was doing that, you'd be thrilled. So I'm very fascinated to just see if he can get anything going in this second half.
Well, the one thing you don't do is trade Michael Harris
No, no, not
because
any
I've
chance.
seen that floated by multiple writers who I really respect, but I just completely disagree with trading Michael Harris at the lowest value possible.
No,
I mean,
it
this
couldn't
could
get
just
lower.
be a lost season for him, and then he comes back next year, and he's not back to the Michael Harris that we saw in his rookie year, but he's back to being an above average hitter with elite defense, right? Even a 110 WRC plus, like you said, you should be thrilled. So to trade him at this point, absolutely not. I could even make the same argument about Ozzy Albies. And that's different because, he only has this year and next year left on his contract. So I guess I could understand that. But I just hate the idea of trading players at their lowest value when they've proved time and time again that they're much better than what they have shown,
Yeah.
especially this year. So I wouldn't trade Albies. I could hear on a lot of other guys. But the reason I'm not trading Albies is I know I'm not going to get the value that I deserve for him. And you certainly wouldn't get the value you deserve for a player of Michael Harris's caliber, even though he hasn't shown it this year. But there's no shot I'm giving up on a player like that.
No, and for him to be worth his contract, which, by the way, after the ARB years that are bought out, it's 8 million this year, 8 million next year, 9 million after that, and then 10 million from 2028 to 2030 will be the first year where it bumps up to 12 million. If he's a 2.5 WAR center fielder, he's worth every penny. I mean,
100%.
it's not even a question. So he doesn't even need to be near what he was in his rookie season or even his second season. He could be what he was in his third season, which was a 99 WRC plus and a 2 WAR player, where it would still be worth that contract. And at that point, if you wanted to move him, you could move him, I think, for a lot more of a haul. It doesn't make any sense to do it. I don't think they will. I'm just interested to see if he can get right because it's as lost as we've seen a player over a large sample in a while.
Where you at the Nationals?
It's funny because I'm very fascinated to just see what they target in some of their trades and just how this new front office is going to operate ahead of the deadline. But I think you kind of know who they're going to trade and who they're going to keep. So I'm looking more at like the internal performances, right? Like, what is Dylan Cruz going to look like when he comes back? Because strained oblique, he's been out since May 20th. This is a player that at 23 years old, with all of the ability he has to play a great center field. I still think he should be playing center field instead of Jacob Young, obviously, and not have him in a corner. So like, with the ability to play a great center field, with the ability to hit the ball really hard and the track record that he has, but the mixed results that he's had at the big league level, like if he's anything close to his potential, the tandem of him and James Wood is easily one of the most exciting young outfield duos in Major League Baseball. How many other outfields have two players under 25 years old that are as impactful as James Wood and Dylan Cruz would be? And you add in C.J. Abrams. I mean, that's an electric trio. But I'm just specifically looking at Dylan Cruz because even when he has been on the field, it's been mixed results. We've gotten some good stretches, but then we've gotten, I think, some frustrating stretches as well. That's the player that I'm focused in on. I'm saying, like, I don't like to put it on one guy, but if he has a great second half, I think that really shifts the energy going into the offseason because now you can say you've got three big time building blocks that you can be really, really excited about that I think, could be perennial all stars, especially at least Wood and you're assuming a guy in Cruz that's putting it together. But I think you could look at Abrams and say that's a guy that could easily, be an all star in future seasons. Already on pace for almost 5 WAR, and has an 836 OPS.
Totally agree on Dylan Cruz. What are your thoughts on Brady House? Because he got called up already, hasn't been exactly a great start to his major league career, but also it is early and he still just is 22 years old. Something I wrote down for him is if he has a pretty good second half, like does his name start to get added towards the young core of the Washington Nationals,
Yeah.
right? Because you have names like James Wood and CJ Abrams who are just automatically in there. You have Dylan Cruz who you hope can be in there and has the talent to do so, and that is something we're watching in the second half. Luis Garcia kind of fits the same mold a little bit. A guy you think, but if he doesn't finish the season strong, what do we think? And then I feel like Brady House is in the tier below where even if he struggles for the rest of the season, you're not necessarily throwing him out of the bucket, but it certainly wouldn't help Nationals fans start to create the core for 2026 if he doesn't surge late. So I'm just curious your thoughts right now on Brady House.
Yeah, I've always been a little bit lower on him, I feel like, than the industry, but at the same time, he's a good defender at third. He hits the ball really, really hard, and I think there's a chance for him to be a solid piece at third base. If he's a league average hitter, he's going to be a above average player there. So I think it's important for him to get these reps. It's easy to forget that he's still just 22 years old. He turned 22 a month ago. So it's tough for me because he has the potential to hit 30 homers, but very aggressive, puts the ball on the ground a little bit too much. And I think we've seen those things kind of rear their head at the big league level. But he still has as much upside as anybody else outside of that core that we mentioned. So I think it's great to get the everyday reps for him and see what he can ultimately be. And I think that is a big question. But I am a little bit more skeptical on him, I think, than some.
Fair. My last one is kind of similar to my point on the Marlins, just a fun narrative to watch for Nationals fans because we're going to talk about selling a lot. And at least they'll get to watch CJ Abrams and James Wood, but also Mackenzie Gore. I'm curious if Mackenzie Gore can lead the National League in strikeouts because right now, in terms of strikeout per nine, he's at 11.26, which is right behind Wheeler in the National League at 11.36. The only issue is, and why Gore is definitely behind Wheeler right now, is because Wheeler has thrown 12 more innings. But because of Mackenzie Gore's upside on the mound to strike out as many hitters as possible, I am just watching to see if he can catch Wheeler for the National League strikeout crown. Not anything crazy. I don't even know if he's going to be able to do it, but it will be a fun thing to watch in the second half for Nats fans.
Oh, I mean, definitely. It's been a while since they've had that appointment watching pitcher, and he's been that this year, right? I mean, if he has a good start out of the break, he could get that ERA sub 3, which is extremely exciting. So yeah, that's a watch guide for you there, right? And so just to be able to tune in and see if he can, finish the season as one of baseball's best pitchers, period. And also a guy that I've seen mentioned a couple times in trade room makes no
No
sense. Do
shot.
not move him. Do not move him. You need to build
Yeah,
up.
who are we building around anyway?
Yeah,
Like, might as well just put Abrams' name in there. Would like if
yeah,
we're just trading everyone, why do it? No, we're not
it,
trading Gore.
you're just gonna be stuck. So
Yeah,
no, let's watch him hopefully continue to blossom and solidify himself as one of the best left-handers in the game.
absolutely. Before we move on to the National League Central, Aram, let's talk about our friends over there at Loop.
Yes, which I've talked about the national, which is approaching. It's in a couple weeks, and I'll be out there with basically on behalf of Loop with our friends at Hit Seekers. We're going to be doing a live break out there and hanging out. And if you're excited about the card collecting hobby in general and everything that comes with it, I'm excited to be able to do that with them. But also, you should check out Loop before that and get an idea of how it all works because it is so much fun. If you're tired of sketchy card breaks or getting ghosted after big pulls on other apps, it's time for something better. And the Loop app is exactly that. I've been collecting cards for a while now, and especially on Loop, I've basically found the easiest and most fun way to be able to get into breaks, buy individual cards, or just browse around and see what's going on in the hobby. Topps Chrome is coming out soon, and that's where you can hunt the debut patches and things like that. And that's one of my favorite products to jump into breaks for. I'm going to be chasing after Griff's debut patch as well. So if I don't want to buy an entire box, I can just buy the Marlins spots in the breaks on this platform with verified breakers. They're not hobbyists in their garage. They're licensed businesses that rely on their reputation or, high volume breakers that you just know your cards are in good hands. You don't have to worry about tampered packs or cards going missing. What you see is what you get. And so for me, I'm going to be chasing after some of these rookie cards, these rookie autos, and of course, dreaming on the debut patch. And I'm going to be jumping into different breaks. What I know is all of the different breakers on that platform are a lot of fun. It's fast and simple, and it's a really fun interactive component as well, right? You talk to the breakers, mention, hey, I'm going after one of my buddy's cards, and they have fun with you. They give you some information on the product. Other people in the chat are really fun that are in the break, and it becomes a really fun interactive experience. Something I love to do, like while I'm watching the games on TV, kind of scrolling through on my phone. And again, like if you don't want to buy an entire box, it's a great way to be able to get into it, and that's how I've been doing it. One of the coolest parts about it is you never know who you're in there with. We did a live stream one time. I know Jazz Chisholm jumped in and was talking in there, and I know a lot of times, sometimes I'm in there and they're like, "Oh, Aram, I love your prospect stuff," and end up talking to them there. So again, we'll be doing a live stream from the National with Hit Seekers, one of the verified sellers on the platform, and we'll be doing a Q&A and talking on there as well. And the best part is, if you want to get in on some of these breaks, or just buy an individual card, Loop is giving you a special offer. If you head over to loupe.cards, that's loupe.cards/jbaseball, you'll get $10 on your first purchase over $50. $10 in credit on your first purchase over $50. So if it's loupe.cards/jbaseball, you'll get $10 in credit to your first purchase over $50. Then go to a break, individual card, whatever it may be. Let me know what you pick up. Terms and conditions apply.
Make sure to check out that link in the episode description as well. Arm, let's move over to the National League Central. And a narrative that excites me more and more by the day is, can PCA actually win the National League MVP over Shohei Ohtani? Because he could be the first center fielder in MLB history to go for 40 home runs and 40 stolen bases. And remember, he is just 23 years old already with 25 home runs and 27 stolen bases with a higher F WAR than Shohei Ohtani. So I think about it like this. Let's say the Cubs win the division, which I think is likely, and PCA puts up a 8-win season with over 40 home runs and over 40 stolen bases. And let's say Shohei just continues this road as a hitter. He's one of the best in the National League. He hits close to 50 home runs. He steals 20 bases. He is still Shohei Ohtani. But let's say the Dodgers continue to baby him when it comes to his starts on the mound, right? We haven't seen him go longer than 3 innings. Maybe he gets up to 5, but when the voting comes, and if PCA has a higher WAR and Shohei really hasn't established himself truly as a starter, he's just doing 3 to 4 inning spurts. And with voter fatigue, could they view someone as PCA as more of the MVP? Now, the odds would not agree with me, and that's why I think it's a crazy narrative that could end up coming true when Shohei Ohtani is like a minus 500, minus 600 favorite to win the National League MVP. And PCA's name, in terms of the odds, he's a distant second. It's not even close. I don't think those odds are correct. I think this is much closer, especially if Shohei continues to get babied on the mound. Now, Shohei could just get red hot, even hotter in the second half offensively, and he could become close to PCA in terms of war if the offense is just that prolific. But a reason why, again, with PCA, you're buying a lot of the upside because with PCA, it's tons of chase. If he runs into these stretches where he's striking out 40% of the time, he may not get there. But if he has another surge in the second half offensively and the defense is as good as ever with a team that won the division, I think there's a real shot here at PCA winning the MVP when the odds do not reflect it at all.
It's crazy. Shohei's already accumulated 0.4 F4 on the mound in 9 innings. That's But I'm with you. If PCA goes 40-40 and platinum gloves it in center, it's really
And the
hard.
Cubs win the division.
And the Cubs win the division. It's really hard to make a case against him. But if Shohei's throwing and also he looks so good. I know they're babying him to your point, and they should, but he looks like Shohei on the mound again. It would just be interesting to see if PCA could just make it a conversation. That said, he also would be probably the lowest OBP MVP of all time.
Yeah.
Which would be another fascinating aspect of it. I think it's ultimately unlikely, but to your point, I don't know if it's as unlikely as it's priced out to be. You're looking at a player that's just it's really hard to figure him out completely, and we've talked about the potential regression or whatever it could be. But the only players in terms of position player war, they actually just in general, if you combine Shohei's pitcher war, you still have an edge on PCA. He's only behind Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh. Both should win the co-MVP. It's really amazing. So I think that's just a fun topic, and it's also just can PCA continue to be a statistical anomaly? Because that combines with what you're saying, but I think that's another side of it too. Even if Shohei is just so freaking good that he ends up running away with the MVP, can PCA be this outlier where all of the things that we look at, swing decisions, chase, OBP, all of those components that we would point towards a typical regression don't end up happening over the course of 162. This guy could be a full-fledged outlier. So I'm just interested to see how long he can, and how far he can take this thing in general too.
Before I throw it over to you for your one thing to watch for the Cubs in the second half, probably the seventh reason why I find the storyline interesting, I already listed my front six, is the American League MVP discussion is so focused on Cal Raleigh's ability to play catcher and how important that is. And there is, a lot of fans out there, even non-Mariners fans, who think Cal Raleigh is more impressive, most notably Jack McMullen on this show, right? But then for whatever reason, they're not holding that same standard for PCA versus Shohei when Shohei's mostly playing DH and PCA actually has the F-WAR lead, right? Because F-WAR encapsulates your defense. So Cal Raleigh gets a big boost for his ability to play catcher, and deservedly so. But he's not higher than Judge. He's one win behind.
Yeah, because
PCA
Judge
is actually in front of Shohei, but nobody's given PCA a chance. And the Mariners are likely not even going to win the American League West crown.
Yeah.
So that's what I just don't understand. Nobody has given PCA that jump, but they're giving it all to Cal Raleigh, which I don't understand.
That's a great point. It's a really good, because how many innings does Ohtani have to throw to offset the DH to elite center field gap?
Because Aaron Judge is at least playing an elite right field on top of it.
Yes.
Shohei's DHing.
Yes. And if Judge was DHing, then I definitely hear that case. But Judge is even just playing, if it's a fine right field, he's a 219 WRC. He's hitting 355 and he's slugging 733. Cal Raleigh's going to have the best catching season of all time, and he's slugging almost 99 points lower than Aaron Judge. So I agree. I think that is kind of a selective logic thing here. And I can hear any conversation, but I want to see PCA make this as difficult of a thought exercise as possible. And it is cool that we have these two conversations that can be had at the same time. And you can say, well, wait, are we applying the same logic here? What's going on? So I think you make a great point, and I hope that PCA keeps it going so that we can make this an argument. Because if he slows down a little bit,
Yeah,
Otani's
I'll
got
tell
a
you, if he
168
slows down
WR.
at all, Otani's winning it.
He might hit 55 home
Because
runs and
what if I'm talking about Otani continued to get babied? What if out of the break he's at 5 innings already, and then we're starting to get 6 inning outings, and then he
yeah.
continues to
That's
hit
the
a
thing is
bunch of
how many
bombs?
innings. I think if he throws more than 60 innings, I think, and it's to a decent ERA, and then I think all of a sudden it becomes really hard to make the case. But I think that's going to make it fun. Like, how much do you have to pitch to offset the DH to elite center field gap? Is just a fascinating conversation.
Where are you at with the Cubs in the second half? I assume deadline stuff.
Yeah, it's got to be right. Like you and we've said it a trillion times since the day the trade went down. When you traded for Kyle Tucker, which by the way, we've got a charity auction going right now and would love for you all to support it. One of the signed canvases that we have is Kyle Tucker's autographed canvas. It's so cool. My girlfriend Ellie crushed it. It's already JSA authenticated. All the proceeds go to Kyle Tucker's foundation. The link in the episode description will send you right to the auctions. Give it a second for the bidding page to load, but we would love for you all to help us support. We also have a Walker Buehler canvas, and we also have a Max Clark canvas. They're all autographed, all authenticated. All the proceeds go to charity. Check out that link in the episode description. Help us raise money for a great cause. When they traded for Tucker and you move a Cam Smith, it's like, okay, that better be the first of an all-in season. And look, they're playing great ball. I'm not saying they had to make the next moves right away to go all in, but they need to make it by the deadline of
They should
being
have
able
been
to
the
make
team to
moves.
go after Adam Frazier.
Yes, that would have that they needed to
They
do
have to
that.
make moves now.
Yeah. Like they've got several 40-man prospects, meaning guys that take a spot on the 40-man, but they're blocked and they're good. Like Kevin Alcantara, Owen Casey. Like those guys are taking 40-man spots right now, and you don't have room for them at the big league level. Those are guys that are usually candidates to be traded. They have a good farm system, a really good farm system. I just feel like you've got to push all the chips forward. But what does it look like? Is it a rental arm or is it a controllable stud arm? Knowing how the Cubs operate seems like a controllable arm, and that's why I think they're great trade partners potentially even with the Marlins for an Edward Cabrera. But do the generally apprehensive Cubs who made their big move and kind of surprised us make another one? And I think they have to validate the first one. And we're waiting.
And I'm really excited about the Cubs deadline too, because you're talking about pushing all the chips in. They are in a very good position where they don't have to push the chips in at all on offense, right? Because you could say, well, they definitely need a third baseman. Peter, what are you talking about? I'm letting Matt Shaw run that position. He's one of the Cubs' top prospects, waiting for him to get going. And the Cubs from 1 to 8 beside him are so prolific that you can live with Matt Shaw,
Yeah,
even if he doesn't turn it up a notch. But I think the both of us are aligned where we do think that he can.
yeah.
So if
And
I'm
just
the
play
Cubs,
defense and steal some bags.
so it's not often that a team with a great farm system is pushing all their chips in and they don't need a huge side of the ball. They only really need to go after bullpen arms and starting pitchers. So every top end starting pitcher that you hear potentially available at this deadline, the Cubs should be on the phone with those teams, which is really exciting if I'm a Cubs fan, knowing that we can focus all of these prospects to be moved just on starting pitchers, just on bullpen arms. So can they be the team? And I'm throwing this name out there because his name continues to get floated, even though I don't think that it's going to happen. But it's possible if the Cubs are pushing all the chips in, right? For this player to be moved, they would have to be called and say, well, we can't decline this offer. It's a complete overpay. But the Cubs are in a position to do that. Is Joe Ryan on the Twins? Same thing. Emmanuel Clase on the Guardians, right? They are the team where they don't need to send prospects for offense, so they could put them all in those buckets and really go for it and win a World Series.
Class A
That's
would be
another
sick.
reason why I'm so excited about the Cubs at the deadline.
Class A would be sick. I love that
Sick.
shout. I mean, and I think that the Guardians would love the bats that
Yeah.
they have to offer in Chicago. That would be a lot of fun. I can't believe how bad Matt Shaw's been too. Like, man,
I
I
know he's been
apologize for that
crap.
prediction. I apologize. He finished. He went into the break 1 for 32.
Yeah. Hasn't been good. But it's like, do we just move off him now? I can't.
No, I think you don't want to fully, especially after trading Cam Smith, you don't want to fully destroy the confidence. I would be trading at worst just for another solid bench piece that can plug in and give you a 9,500 WRC plus if Shaw is fully
But the
lost.
thing is, they have Bruhan and they have Turner. Like, I think those three are fine enough to just man third base
Yeah.
because all other eight positions are so locked in and good.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
reason, right? Because if you have just one position that's not great, and at least that guy can play defense, like
Yeah.
I'm thinking in
And
a
run.
playoff game, right? Because their seventh and eighth hitter are getting on base all the time. How about just a bunt?
Yeah.
And play some good defense. Like
Yeah.
that's winning baseball.
Yeah.
So I don't want to move off Matt Shaw, and I don't even want to trade prospects in order to get a bench bat. I wouldn't want to trade a Cam Devaney adjacent guy for a bench bat when you already have them. So I'm just going full bore for Joe Ryan, and I'm going full bore for Emmanuel Clase because they have the pieces to do it. And I think, you know what? I think it's okay to overpay for those two guys.
Oh, I
You
agree.
might have overpaid for Michael Bush. Look how well that's working out for you in the interim,
Yeah, who
right?
cares? It's not
So
even an
it's like, yeah,
overpay with the way he's playing.
you
Like
gave
it's
up Ferris and Zaire Hope. Yeah, maybe down the line, those prospects, and it'll end up being a quote unquote not a great trade for the Cubs. But right now, you have a first baseman with an OPS over 900. Right
yeah,
now, Joe
which almost
Ryan,
makes it impossible for it to be a bad trade. Like it literally is
exactly.
impossible.
So, yes,
So
overpay for him. You can, and you could go win a World Series if you go grab those two guys. So, I think
I
the
agree.
Cubs are in an incredible spot here.
I agree.
Let's move over to the Milwaukee Brewers. I know I started out with the Cubs, so I'll throw it over to you. What's the one thing you're watching in Milwaukee?
What do they do with their pitching situation? And
Mm.
it's a great problem. I don't mean it in a bad way. I mean it in like an excellent way. Like it's like they keep shuttling guys up and down from the and I know it's because you want to just have available arms, right? So like Logan Henderson throws, option him. Chad Patrick throws, then they option him. It's a crazy amount of depth that they have right now in that rotation. And now with Mizrowski up there just looking like a lights out arm for them, and Quintana back healthy, like and Priester throwing well, and Woodruff looking incredible. You've got your rotation there. Peralta's pitching as well as he ever has. There's five starters, but then you've got Logan Henderson, then you've got Chad Patrick, and you've got even more guys potentially on the way. You're deep with arms here. What do you do? Robert Gasser's going to come back from TJ either at the end of this year as well, or at least going into next year. So, do you trade from those guys to set yourself up better for this year, or are you still just looking at the longevity of just having a ton of arms and building from there and going from there? I don't know, but I'm just really interested to see because I wouldn't change a thing in this rotation right now. But shit, Logan Henderson looked amazing, and Chad Patrick has been fantastic. Those guys are just not going to throw for you. Like they're just going to be your 6 and 7 starters. Do you potentially move one of them for a controllable bat, like a rare kind of big leaguer, quote unquote, for big leaguer trade? Like Joey Ortiz has been a gaping hole at shortstop. How much more runway do you give him? Do you potentially go out and make a move that way? I'm just very fascinated to see what they do with this pitching situation overall. And it seems like a disservice to have Chad Patrick and Logan Henderson in AAA.
And just to add to that quickly before I get to mine, what does the rest of Jacob Mizorowski's season look like? Because he's already thrown 25 innings, so you might expect, oh, he's just going to throw 5 to 6 innings for the rest of the season. I'm not so sure. In 2024, he threw 97 innings in the minor leagues, and that was his career high in a season. And in 2025, he already made 12 starts in the minor leagues, compiling 63 innings. So if you add his innings between AAA and the major league level, you get 85 innings. So his career high, he's 12 innings away. I assume they're going to go higher than that, but how much higher? So that's what I'm looking to watch here. Is Jacob Mizorowski going to be in the playoff rotation? And if he is, how many innings is he going to throw on a start by start basis for the rest of the year? I don't have the answers to that. That's why it's something to watch in the second half.
Yeah, is he going to skip some starts? Is he going to be an opener for some? That's where maybe you use a Chad Patrick as a long man, whatever it may be.
DL
Yeah,
Hall.
I am really interested. I think it's 89 innings.
I might have done the math wrong.
89. So like that's a lot. Like that for him too. They're going to be careful. This is a guy that can be a generational talent on the mound. Like I don't think that's extreme to say. You don't want to run that guy into the ground, even if you're really competitive this year. So they're going to want him available for the playoffs. And I am very fascinated to see how they handle that as well. That might also make one of the other arms less likely to get moved, though, because you might want to go 6-man rotation. You may want to do Mizorowski opener, one of those guys piggyback. So I just want to know how they handle the whole pitching situation, period. I think it's super fascinating.
And another fascinating narrative, it's small, but it is also the biggest thing of them all. Are the Brewers just going to win this division? I mean, they're one game back. On June 1st, they were 32 and 28. Now on July 17th, they're 56 and 40, and they are just a game back of the Cubs. And I think not a lot of people are talking about this division race is because it's not like one team is faltering and another team is ascending. The Cubs are still playing good baseball. It's just the Brewers are playing amazing baseball, right? You talked about Joey Ortiz being a gaping hole at shortstop. For the majority of the season, he has, but at least lately, the bat has looked a little bit better, right? They've gotten complementary pieces like an Isaac Collins in left. But I also see more potential in the Brewers lineup that hasn't been fully unlocked yet. Most notably, Jackson Chorio. Remember in the second half of last season, he was a straight up human missile?
Yeah.
I mean, what if
Yeah.
he replicates that? I was talking about it with Jack in the last episode. What if he just is a slow starter and then just catapults his way up in the second half? Contreras as well. He hasn't been nearly the player that he was last year or even the year before. But do we have something cooking with him? Can he take that next step? Yelich stays red hot. We already talked about how good the rotation is. We already know how amazing the bullpen is. What if the offense takes another big step?
Yeah.
This Brewers team gets real dangerous real fast, and they are just a game behind. So that's why, going back to the Cubs, the deadline is so interesting. This team needs to add pieces. And the Brewers, if those two guys, Chorio and Contreras, I'm looking at both of you, if you guys get hot and Joey Ortiz puts up 100 WRC plus
Yeah.
for the rest of the season, I'm not asking
90.
for him to go crazy, just
90.
as better. Arm, this team could win the division.
Yeah. And they've got one of the best farm systems to trade from if they wanted to. Just saying.
Just saying. All right, let's move over to the St. Louis Cardinals. Again, we got to talk deadline with them because right now the Cardinals are 51 and 46. By no means should anyone call them automatic sellers. But the trade deadline is on July 31st. If they're at 500 by the deadline, what do they do? Let's say they're still 5 games over 500. Are they buying and selling? Let's say they have a disastrous 2 weeks and they're under 500. Are they selling completely? We talk about interesting teams at the deadline. It may not be a more important 2 weeks for any team than the St. Louis Cardinals right now in terms of who are they going to sell. Because let's say I gave a lot of almost negative options, staying the same, going to 500, going to below. What if they have a great 2 weeks and they're now 9 or 10 games over 500 by the deadline? Now you're not selling at all and you are full-blown buying. I have no idea what they're going to do, and I think these next 2 weeks are incredibly fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I think it literally determines it.
Yep.
If they have a bad 2 weeks, I think they stand pat or even trim a little bit. If they have a even I think even if they have a 500 2 weeks, you're still probably looking at adding. I mean, you're a game and a half out of the wild card, and I think you could look at the teams ahead of you and the Giants and the Padres and say, hey, we can match up with them. You look behind you and you say the Reds are maybe the only team that could really be on your heels. Then it's Diamondbacks and Marlins. So you're not too worried about behind you. You're just looking ahead of you. I think there's a lot of reason to potentially be willing to add there. But at the same time, that was not really the discourse going into this year. So I am very fascinated by that. And I really hope they play well because this should be a team that adds. You're the
Me
St. Louis
too.
freaking Cardinals, and you're in a position to potentially make the playoffs. Like you should add. So I think that's going to be a very key thing to watch. And you have this weird, like, lame duck front office situation with Mozeliak handing it over to Chaim Bloom, but they're both involved right now. But I think they can be on the same page to try to get this team in the playoffs, and I think the fans deserve that. And then I think individual player wise, it's what do you have with Jordan Walker? And it's tough because if you are in a playoff hunt, can you justify continuing to give this guy ABs where and I know he went back down to they said to double A, and I
Yeah.
don't know if that was more on the rehab front or whatever it may have been, but you know if you want to see what he can do, you do it in the show and you give him reps and try to get him right. But this is also a team now that's trying to win the world or trying to make the playoffs. I don't know if you can justify having him in the lineup every single day. So what do you do there? And at what point do you think he's worth giving him the shot again? And at what point do you maybe phase him back out? It can really stifle his confidence, but he hasn't really earned the opportunity to play every day. It's a really weird situation. I think the question just in general is what do you do with Jordan Walker in general? And I'm just fascinated to see what they do. It's easy if you're out of the race to just say, hey, go up to the big leagues, try to get right, go play for a few months, and let's see what happens. But if you're in a hunt now, it's a little different.
And I think that's a really interesting narrative because if you are in the hunt, I guess Jordan Walker isn't a part of your plans. Like just that sentence
He's not
alone is
helping you
crazy.
win. No.
And again, it's, I know we got sent down to double A, so maybe Cardinals fans listening to this are just saying, well, there's not much to watch. He's just going to be in the minor leagues for the rest of the year. Is that what we want?
Well, so it was appendicitis, but like I don't think they're gonna rush him back up. Like so he's doing rehab games for
Okay.
appendicitis, and but yeah, I don't really like. Are you eager to bring him back up
Yeah, that's the
from these
question.
rehab games?
And then where do you play him? Because are you playing him in the outfield? Because right now you really have just Burleson and Newbar in your corners with Victor Scott in center. And I guess you could move Newt to center in order to get Jordan Walker's bat in the lineup. But the DH spot seems kind of filled right now with Ivan Herrera just hitting a home run, what seems like every single day.
The
So now
goat.
there's not a spot there, and there's certainly not a spot at third. He's like third on the pecking order there with Arenado, that's JC, and then Jordan Walker. And they've tried to move him out of third anyway, so that doesn't even seem like an option, even if JC and Arenado weren't there. So
I
that's
mean,
why I think it's so fascinating.
I don't. I think even you could look at the DH spot, and I mean Gorman's a better option. Like there's really, I don't even really know what you do, and I think there's a chance he's just trying to get right in AAA the rest of the year. So that's definitely something I want to see, and just get some clarity on from the team. I'm very interested.
Where are you at on the Reds?
I want to see the Reds be aggressive in general, but I'm specifically looking at Matt McClain. Matt McClain's a guy that I was very high on. I definitely a guy that I was excited about coming back from injury going into this year because knew he would play a really good defensive second base or third base, wherever they wanted to stick him. And he has been a solid defender at second base, and he's been able to plug in at short when needed. He's such a dynamic player if he's hitting enough with the power speed combination. Like he's been bad this year. He's got 10 homers and 13 bags, but the problem is he's hitting 210. So I just want to see if he can get back to anything close to what we saw in 2023 before the injury. And this is a guy that if he's playing anywhere near his capabilities, that's really going to push this team over the top. But it's just another situation here where, so what are you going to get in the second half of the season? Is it a fully lost year for him off of injury? Or does he start to settle in now the more distanced he is from that injury?
Yeah. What do you think? Like, do you believe in a second half surge?
I still do. I still do. He hits the ball too hard. He's too quick. It's such a hitter friendly environment. I just he hits the ball in the air. And I know the EVs have been down a little bit this year, but still, I feel like he has the ability to leave that yard pretty consistently to all fields. The approach has been pretty good. The challenge has been recognizing spin, and I just hope that gets a little bit better as the year progresses. It's not like he's striking out 35% of the time or anything like that. I think he gets closer to right. I don't think he gets fully right this year, but I think he gets closer to right.
The next thing that I'm watching for the Cincinnati Reds, and it's very similar to the Brewers, is what does the rest of Chase Burns' season look like? Because Chase Burns has already thrown 66 innings in the minor leagues and 16 big league innings. And yeah, I mean, after he got drafted. So I am just curious what the innings limit looks like for him when Hunter Green comes back. Is Chase Burns back to the minor leagues? Do they keep Chase Burns because you watch him pitch and it's hard to take him out of this rotation, but the rotation is also really stacked. So it's not like they need Chase Burns, but it would certainly be nice if we're making a playoff push. And if we are making a playoff push, is Chase Burns going 5, 6 innings every single start? I can't imagine that. So what does it look like? Do they, limit his innings for the playoffs? Is he just not truly a part of the picture this year? I think there's a lot of questions to be asked about Chase Burns in the second half, and that's why I'm interested to see what happens.
Yeah, I am too, because as you mentioned, like Abbott, Lodolo, Brady Singer, Nick Martinez, who you're paying too much money to not have pitch. Like when Hunter Green comes back, where does he go? Maybe they manage his innings a little bit and he goes into the bullpen, and that could be electric.
Electric.
I'm very curious because it is another. He's 22 and he's going to be a big part of your future, and you have the clear rotation spot for him next year. But if he's throwing the way that we've seen him throw through some of the other starts, you can't pull that guy out of the rotation either. Do you go six man then as well? I wouldn't hate it given some of the health, issues that Lodolo and Green have historically had. So that I think that's a great one. And I don't think they've really said much yet. And I don't think they fully know either, because it's going to be very dependent on how Hunter Green comes back and what he looks like when he does come back in terms of being able to handle a workload.
Let's move over to the Pittsburgh Pirates. And with this team, they're going to sell off pieces at the deadline. They already did with Adam Frazier. There's not really a lot of players that they currently have where, like, for example, I think Nick Gonzalez is a part of the young core,
Mm-hmm.
right? You kind of see the players already, and O'Neal Cruz is part of it. Brian Reynolds is contractually obligated to be part of it, and he doesn't want to leave to any good team, so he's sticking there. So I kind of already know what the Pirates deadline is going to look like. They are going to trade off pieces that are super, super obvious, like Heaney, like Falter, potentially Mitch Keller. I don't think that's super interesting, and that's something I'm watching with the Pirates. So it really has to do with what's on the field. And I think the most interesting thing to watch for the Pirates moving forward is, can Paul Skeens win the Cy Young over Zach Wheeler? Because you look at the stats right now. Wheeler has thrown one more inning, and he's got a 2.36 ERA compared to Paul Skeens, who has a 2.01 ERA. And Paul Skeens, of course, has an ERA under two for his career. I don't really care about the win-loss record. I don't think the voters care anymore about that. So if Paul Skeens can lead the National League in innings with an ERA at 2.01, Wheeler might own him in the strikeout category, but Skeens can really win this Cy Young. And if you're looking at the start to Paul Skeens' career, could it be any better? Right before Mizorowski got called up, who was the player with the least amount of starts to make the All-Star team? Paul Skeens, right? And then he starts the All-Star game this year. And it's just been one of the most unbelievable starts for any player, period, to start their big league career. And if he could have that crowning achievement of winning the Cy Young in his second year, really his first full season, right? Because he didn't get called up until a little bit before halfway the season started. So in his first full year, he's already winning Cy Youngs. That's putting him on trajectories where only the all-time greats can say they're even close.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's the player to just watch in general with this
Yeah.
team. Like it's hard to make a guide otherwise, unless they call up Bubba Chandler. And I think, do they call up Bubba Chandler?
That's
And
the
when?
answer. It's
And what
really
does he
just
look like?
this segment could be just a sentence. One thing to watch, Paul Skeens. Second thing to watch, are they calling up Bubba Chandler?
Yeah, and then just what does he look like, and what does that duo look like? That's it, right? Like, when do they call up Bubba Chandler, and how fun does it look? That's going to be the thing to watch.
I'm curious, how fun do you think it'll look if he does get called up? Like how bullish are you on him at this moment?
It's tough because he has like a couple start stretches where the command has waned, and then you look at the last two, he's been dominant again, where he's 12 innings, no runs, four walks, 13 Ks. I think he would level up at the big league level. I think he's frustrated and a little bit just going a little stale in AAA at this point. And I think you get him in the big leagues, I think there'll be a different level of lock in and command that would come back there. I think it would be electrifying, especially with the fastball. I just think that would be really fun to watch with him in that fastball changeup combination. I think the days he's on, it would be kind of like Burns, and then maybe he'd have some days where he gets roughed up a little bit and the command's not totally there. But I think it would be electrifying, and having those two going, I think it would be really fun for Pirates fans down the stretch, and what's mostly a lost season.
Put this in context for Pirates fans. So when Jared Jones got called up, the stuff was electric, but at the end of the day, it was an ERA around four. Do you think Bubba Chandler is going to be similar in terms of electricity, but the production is going to be better, or should they expect about what Jared Jones did?
I think about what he did if the command issues or like command inconsistencies seep over. But Chandler has a little bit more diverse of an arsenal, where you've got a changeup that looks like it could be plus. That slider looks really good, and then he's even mixed in a curveball as well, where it was very fastball slider dependent. But you could probably argue that that duo of pitches, is it was as good as it's just about any in baseball. But I think he could be just as dominant in the peaks. But I think you could also have some of the bumps as well.
Before we move over to the National League West, a quick reminder that the best way to support the Just Baseball show, rate and review on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, or wherever you listen to your shows. Like, subscribe, and comment on YouTube. Comment anything. What do you think about the show so far? What do you think about some of these takes? I saw Red Sox fans on the American League episode. They were filling up the comment section. Really appreciate everyone who does. And of course, we want to answer as many comments as we can. And if you want to dive into this a little bit deeper with us, the draft, we're still talking draft. The trade deadline is coming up soon. We're going to be breaking down all the rumors that we hear. And of course, every trade with our full thoughts immediately. And then, of course, for the rest of the season, my bets, football starting, everything in our Discord, the best baseball group chat in the world. You can join. It's just $10 a month, less than a price of a sandwich. And we're going to have an absolute blast. And you can find that in the episode description. And again, our last break. Let's talk LA Dodgers. One thing to watch in the second half. I wrote down Blake Snell, Tyler Glasnow, Roki Sasaki over 12 and a half starts in the second half. I made it a line. And I think that is something to watch too, because the Dodgers, clearly prolific. We could talk about what they're going to do at the deadline, but if they do absolutely nothing, they still have the best roster in the sport. But they can get to true juggernaut levels if Blake Snell, Glasnow, and even Roki Sasaki can bounce back. Now, Roki is the one I am, I guess, waiting on the least.
Yeah.
I don't even really know if he ends up making a start and factoring into this line that I made for us to listen to during the show. But Glasnow made his return. And Glasnow was really important for this Dodgers rotation because, again, we're asking the same question with the Dodgers leading up to the postseason. How are they going to operate this rotation? Because a lot of the guys have gotten injured. Do they go on the trade market? Do they not have to because Snell and Glasnow return to form? And then they just have an incredible three-headed monster, of course, with Clayton Kershaw and all of their young arms, and they're able to piece it together like that. So that's my question. Are those guys truly able to help the Dodgers reach juggernaut heights in the second half? So the line and question for you is over 12 and a half. Would you take the under or the over?
I think I'd take the over. I think I would. I'm going to be optimistic here, especially since Glasnow is already back and it seems like Snell is getting there. But I think it's just those two that would take it over. I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think Sasaki's. I hope he does, but I could also very much understand just saying, "Hey, let's take this year off. Let's get you right physically. Let's get you right and ready to go for next season." Because I think it'd be a lot of pressure coming back from injury. It's still never really having big league success yet, and then trying to help a team go win the World Series. That's a lot for a guy coming over to the other side of the world. I think that's a really tough spot to put him in. So and if those other two are back, even more reason to not worry about that. And also, if Shohei Ohtani's back on the mound, then even more reason to not need to rush Roki Sasaki and push him. And that's the other side of it, right? Is what does Shohei Ohtani, the pitcher and hitter, look like? This is the part that I'm fascinated by. Is I think we're seeing that the pitcher is there and back. The stuff, I mean, it's averaging
ridiculous.
He's averaging 98 miles an hour. I understand it's shorter spurts. He went 36 pitches last time out, but he averaged 98 miles an hour. He threw 25 strikes and he struck out 4 people in 3 innings. But he's 31 years old. He's now off of this surgery, and we haven't seen him pitch and hit since 2023. Does he bounce back the same way? I think yes, and I'm not trying to doubt Shohei Ohtani. It's not what I'm not trying to do like the talk radio, like, well, what if? Like, I'm just, does he bounce back at the same elite level that we saw in 2023? Or does it take him some time to just get back in that rhythm again? It's a rhythm that no one has ever actually done. So, like, coming off of surgery, building his innings back up, this is a very unique circumstance where you're returning from TJ while still hitting the whole time and now building your innings up. Guys coming off of TJ always talk about just the endurance and coming back and just throwing and being able to get your body into shape again anyways. Now you're compounding that with still being a hitter every single day. I'm just very interested to see what that looks like. Does the hitting suffer a little bit? Does the pitching suffer at all? I don't think so, but I just want to see what it all looks like as he does it for the first time again since 2023.
100%. Let's move over to the San Diego Padres. And one thing, actually, I just started for the Dodgers, so you go ahead. One thing you're watching for San Diego.
Well, yeah, what do they get from you, Darvish and Michael King,
Yeah.
right? I mean, those guys, if I told you right now, you, Darvish and Michael King are healthy, full go, how much does that change your Padres perspective?
A lot. I mean, Yu Darvish through two starts has a 6.48 ERA. I don't think that's going to be Yu Darvish moving forward. I think he's going to get settled in, which I don't think is a hot take at all. I think we all agree. And Michael King, right? The latest update on his injury, expected to return sometime after the All-Star break, recently resumed throwing and participated in his first formal bullpen session, right? He's in the bullpen phase, quote unquote, to regain strength. So it's July 17th. If he's throwing bullpens, my guess is he'll be back in a month. You think that's fair?
Yeah,
So if
I would
he's
say
back,
so.
let's say 3 to 4 weeks, right? Say he's back on August 15th and he puts together 8 really good starts for the Padres. They're going to win a lot of those games.
Yeah,
Yu Darvish, let's say moving forward, he pitches to a 3.8 ERA, which isn't exactly Yu Darvish, but it's pretty damn close. Padres are going to win a lot of those games. Their bullpen, we saw all three of them, all three of their high leverage guys in the All-Star game, and we know how good the offense is, and we know that they're probably going to add to that offense, most certainly in left field. So if they're both back, and over those 18 starts, let's say, they win 13 of them, we're right there.
yeah.
Right? So I think it's huge. I think that is the number one thing to watch with San
And you're
Diego.
not doubting those guys in the postseason if they're able to win it.
Absolutely not. Those guys are dogs. Yu Darvish against the Dodgers,
Yeah,
he could beat them.
yeah,
His numbers against the Dodgers are absurd. So they face each other again in the first, second round of the playoffs. I'm picking Padres money line in that game because Yu Darvish can lead them there, right?
yeah,
And with
yeah.
Dylan Cease, he's had kind of an up and down year. Nick Pivetta has been really solid. Like they need guys who just you feel good about. And of course, you could say, well, Randy Vasquez, they feel good about. And I don't get it, but he's keeping the ball off the middle part of the barrel and it's working. But you really want King and Darvish there, especially with Joe Musgrove not returning this year. You need them. And if they're back to what we know they can be, Padres are right back to being one of those dangerous teams that is not afraid of the Dodgers. And if they get by them, they're live against any of the rest of those teams. So they are so important.
Yep.
And one more thing, and again, I don't actually think this is going to happen, but we talked about it in the Red Sox portion of the show in part one. Do the Padres trade for Jaron Duran? I mean, how many times have you seen that report, Aram?
It's
Like,
it's it's like so much that I feel like there's no way.
I agree, but at the same time, our Preller has been prone to overpaying. Do the Red Sox say, well, we have to do this?
Yeah,
Like Preller has gone insane. He's given us everything.
yeah,
We have to. And then if that happens, which again, the reason I'm bringing up is like Preller is prone to doing that. This is not a regular GM. This is a certain GM that has the ability to do that. Are they going to do it? That's
yeah.
just, I don't even have much else because
Yeah,
again,
what
I
what does
don't
what
think
does
it's going to
Preller
happen.
Mania look like this time
Yeah,
around? That's always the second half question. It's one of the best, and that's why I love that guy.
I know. He makes it so much more interesting. Let's move over to the San Francisco Giants, unless you have any parting thoughts on,
That's it. It just
like,
does.
give me a percentage Duran to the Padres. I think I'll go first. I think it's 30-70, 30 being he is
Yeah,
traded to the
I was
Padres.
gonna say 32 because I just think it's gonna need to be DeVries, and I just think that might be the one guy that Preller is like I just can't,
I
I
know.
can't, I can't. Or he finally caves, but I just don't see how they pull it off without Leo.
Yeah. But then I'm just thinking to myself, like, DeVries is like, what? Okay, Leo's 18. We'll see him in
Yeah.
a few years, maybe.
Well, he
Let's
doesn't
do
look like he can
it.
debut this year, so fuck him. Like,
He's really a young Dombrowski, but at the same time, he's an incredible scout. All right, let's go to the San Francisco Giants. I'll start again. I'm so interested in this Posey regime
mhm.
because Devers came out of left field. How aggressive are the Giants at the deadline? Is Posey one of these GMs who says, every other team's model in Major League Baseball are valuing these prospects too high. Now, I know in the trade for Devers, he didn't have to part with any of his top prospects outside of James Tibbs. So now he has prospects to trade from. I know the Giants system isn't incredible, but if he starts dangling Bryce Eldridge in front of
Oh,
teams, he could really get anyone. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but the title of this episode is something to watch.
yeah.
I am watching to see how Posey does in his first year at the helm of the Giants, where he thinks to himself, these teams are valuing these prospects too high. I'll trade some to get a big time star over here on the Giants where we think we can really make some noise. And they can really make some noise because the rotation has been solid, the bullpen has been awesome, and you expect Willie Adames to heat up. So, will Buster Posey really act like one of these former players who are on TV all the time saying, trade these prospects, trade them? Is
Yeah.
Posey cut from that cloth? I'm interested to see.
Yeah, it's funny because he's part of a dynasty that had so
Yeah.
many established, consistently solid players. That's where I was actually just kind of intertwining with that for my question or thing to monitor is, do they give Bryce Eldridge a shot this year? And does he want a vet instead? Do they go out and acquire? Do they go with their guy who's 20 years old, putting up some of the best TVs in the minor leagues? I think there's some flaws to the profile right now in AAA, but you could argue that this guy could get up there and offer as much power as anybody in your lineup essentially. Right now it's Dom Smith at first base. He's been okay, but if he really slows down, I mean that's a guy that you could plug right there because it seems like Devers doesn't want to put a glove on. And I mean he could be a spark plug for you. So do they give Eldridge a shot? Is what I'm really fascinated by because if you don't trade him and you don't give him a shot, and it seems like he's untouchable by a lot of measures, but you also always say that about your top guy. But if you don't trade him and you don't give him a shot this year, you did make a move that it doesn't say all in this year. It does also say next year and the year after that. But it would kind of, I think, imply a less urgency into this individual season, which is okay. But it would also be telling, right? Maybe Posey's starting to build a little bit longer term. So that's definitely something I'm looking at is do they give Eldridge a shot? And like, what does he have to do to earn that shot at AAA? He has a 125 WRC plus right now.
Another thing I'm watching, Willie Adames. Can he have an all-star type second half at least? We'd like to see him turn it up a bit. But let's move over to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And you're up, and I think I know your answer because I think it's everyone listening's answer and everyone on Earth's answer.
Yeah. How does this thing look? Is it just expiring pieces? Is it, a few other guys other than that? Are you trading some controllable pieces? I think it's going to be mostly expiring pieces and then they surprise you with one of the young outfielders. None of the really good ones, obviously, but and not saying Corbin Carroll or anything like that, but maybe an Alec Thomas, we'll see McCarthy, whatever they do there, but maybe Gurriel, who's under control for one more year, I believe. I just want to see what it looks like because Mike Hazen does not really rebuild. He never really has, and it wouldn't really be a rebuild, but we haven't even really seen him tear down much at all or even sell. So I just want to see what they do on those expiring contracts and how much more they potentially sell from there, and what they acquire. Is it upper minors guys? Is it lottery tickets that are way down low? I think that would also be telling in terms of what they're trying to do.
Absolutely. What do you think they end up doing? Do you think it's I was looking at the Diamondbacks roster and I was thinking to myself, if they actually want to rebuild, everybody is on the table outside of Marte and Carroll. I mean, maybe you could say, well, they signed Perdomo to the extension and they want to keep him. But then I think if someone offered something crazy, like they technically do have Jordan Lawler. So that's why I was like, Perdomo's not getting traded regardless. But at the same time, I put him on the table if someone wants to give me a huge offer for him.
With Lawler's struggles, you got an everyday shortstop who's going to be a 4 WAR plus
Again,
player
that's
this
why I'm
year.
not saying he is getting traded. I'm just saying in the light of a full teardown, is that something they would even entertain?
Probably not after the extension.
Yeah.
I would say do the expiring guys plus Gurriel plus maybe a Thomas,
Like
but even
also
then, like
Gabby
what's he gonna
Moreno
do?
ain't getting traded either.
Moreno ain't getting traded
Yeah.
either. And then the pitching side, like Merrill Kelly, what do you do there? Gallen, obviously. Like they're gonna kind of set the deadline here in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I'm very interested, but I think that's ultimately going to be what they most of the expiring guys, and then maybe a Gurriel. I don't think they're going to move too much other than that. And then maybe is Merrill Kelly expiring? Is he? He's a free agent as well. So all the expiring guys, and then maybe Gurriel. I don't think they do more than that.
I can't imagine the collective gasp in Arizona when Shane Smith hit
Oh
Gino
my
Suarez
gosh,
on the hand during the All-Star game.
the collective gasp and just 10 different fan bases. I
I
was
know.
like, that guy was supposed to save like 10 different fan bases seasons.
Shout out Peyton at Big League Analysis on social. Make sure to go follow him. Obviously, he and I are Yankee fans, and we were watching the All-Star game together. And
Yeah, Peyton was acting like a Yankees
Peyton
player
shrieks,
got
"The
drilled.
season is over." And I was like, "The Diamondbacks?" He's like, "The Yankees." Like,
Yeah,
the Yankees season is over.
that
I
was
thought that was
good.
so funny. And I'm sure a lot of teams of other fans shared a similar reaction to that. Last one for me. And again, what you just laid out is like the definitive answer. But just to provide another one, is Brandon Pfaadt the guy you want to build around in this rotation?
I'm so interested. And I know they extended him too, but like,
Yep.
dude, I don't know. Like,
Five
I want to
seven
see some good starts.
5.72 ERA when he first comes up in his first 96 innings. But I think all of us were like, all right, we're definitely giving him another chance here. The stuff did look pretty good. Some of the underlying numbers said he got unlucky. Let's give him another chance. Then in the next season, in 2024, there was 181 innings. Now the ERA is still high, but the underlying metrics are way better. The stuff ticked up, and everyone's expecting a big jump in year three. But instead, the stuff has ticked back down below what he was doing in his rookie year. And now he's rocking a 5.16 ERA. His expected ERA says worst days are yet to come, rocking a 6.20. Now his FIP, XFIP says it should come down. You look at some home run numbers. Yeah, maybe. But the amount of hard contact he's allowing at 49%, I'm not really buying into FIP and XFIP with him,
Yeah.
especially because his strikeout rate is at the lowest of his career so far. So instead of taking a jump or at least maintaining what he did in 2024, he's taken a dive so deep that it's below his rookie year numbers, where we were expecting to give him another chance. So now I don't know what to do with him. Like, I don't even have a take on this. I'm just so perplexed by the pitcher that is Brandon Pfaadt.
Yeah, I think you're definitely hoping he finishes the year strong. That sets you up next year, especially when you're moving a Gallon. Merrill Kelly's probably getting moved. You don't have a ton of certainty in that rotation, and you've extended this guy. You want to see at least that he can be just a reliable four. And I think it's even fair to question that with some of the numbers that you just put up.
You want to move on to the Rockies? Do you even have anything? It is your turn, technically. So you
Of
actually
course,
have to
of
go
course, you
first.
you plotted this.
I'm so good at what I do.
I would say, I mean, we already know that I was wrong and we were all wrong, and the Rockies fleeced the Nolan Jones Taylor Freeman trade. So there's nothing more to know about that. Um, you got anything, honestly? Like, I would say,
I wrote down who's a part of the young core, but like I'll be honest, like I said this about the White Sox last year. When you're so bad, so historically level bad, I can watch bad baseball and find a lot of things that I'm excited about. But when you're possibly the worst team in professional sports, there's not one thing I'm watching. There just isn't.
I got
I'm
one.
not turning on the Rockies, and they sent down Dolander. That would have been my answer.
Yeah,
But he's been
yeah.
terrible. But I like what if he puts together a 4.5 ERA over in the second half when he gets called up? Like, what are you even saying? You're going to
I would.
use even if he put up a 12 ERA over the rest of the season, you're still slotting him in the rotation next year.
Yeah,
So I'm not even really watching anything.
I think like, what's going on with Brenton Doyle, and like,
Yeah,
can he be not one of the worst players in Major League Baseball?
are you really
This is
watching that?
one of the more shocking seasons,
Yeah,
honestly,
it really
because
is.
I mean, this guy was awesome last year. I mean, and it's awesome in the regard that like he was an elite defender. That if he's a 97 WRC plus at Coors Field or park adjusted, of course, 23 homers, 30 stolen bases, it's a almost 4-win player. He's really good, and that's a big building block for you. This year, his defense is also worse. So I think he's like hurt or something,
Must
and
be.
he's one of the worst qualified hitters in Major League Baseball. slashing 202, 254, 322 at Coors. I think you could pluck, and I don't usually say this, I don't. I think you could pluck a lot of minor leaguers that could give you a 202, 354, 322 slash line at Coors with a 26% strikeout rate.
Well, you couldn't without Alamodor.
Parts. That's tough. Yeah, does Amador get a shot? Like, but no, I think Doyle is who you're looking at because this was a guy that you were looking at and saying 3+1 player building block. Now he's one of the worst players in Major League Baseball. There's got to be somewhere in between here. That's what I'm really interested in. I just want to see him get semi right.
So that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. Hopefully everybody has a good weekend. One thing that I want to wrap on, my last word is, I saw this video today, and it comes to us from behind the broadcast. Hopefully Peyton is editing our YouTube so everybody can watch it. And if you're listening on audio, just go on over to the YouTube just to watch this segment. This guy, Aram, behind the camera is cooking during the home run derby. And that is one of those jobs that goes so underrated when enjoying a baseball game is the cameraman, right? When you see a home run and it goes such a far distance and the cameraman is right on the baseball and you get to see all of that home run. And how weird is it when the cameraman messes up his job? Right in the home run derby, for example, when a guy misses it and it goes straight up and you're like, whoa, that's way gone. And it ends up going short and you're upset. Doesn't happen all that often. It's almost like umpires when they get 95% of the calls right, but you see that one mistake, right? There's some umpires who suck, and that I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the good umpires who make one mistake and you see. And I feel like cameramen even make any less mistakes. And another reason I wanted to bring it up is you've been at games, plenty of them, taking prospect videos. I've been at games, taking videos for our social channels. Peyton, Elijah, everybody who works here at Just Baseball, they're using their phone. How hard is it to truly get that home run flying through the air and getting that perfect picture? These guys are incredible at what they do. I just wanted to shout out the cameramen who make our game better visually because they never get the shout. There are so many little jobs throughout baseball, and I'm calling them little, not because they actually are little, but because of how fans appreciate them. Shout out the cameraman. You guys have done an incredible job throughout All-Star Weekend, throughout baseball, and I wanted to give them another shout out because you got to see the video after this. Like, this guy is keyed in on. He's getting the ball flight perfectly. I'm like, this ball is leaving at 120 miles an hour. And these guys from the rafters are locked in. Incredible work by the camera crew.
You and I would zone out at some point. We'd be like thinking about like, oh, would I trade him for this? Or like, what? I'm going to go check his numbers. Like, wait, he's doing that. And then gone.
I could never do it. Those guys are athletes.
I'd be so bad.
Those guys are athletes.
Yeah. Well, also it's like mental fortitude, like locked in for that long. They gotta be exhausted afterwards. So yeah, that is one of those things that you don't pay attention to, like the person behind it that's making that thing go that you enjoy all the time.
I'm telling you, these guys are cooking. So hopefully everybody enjoyed, again, this episode of the Just Baseball Show. The best way to support, go get yourself some Just Baseball merch. Why not? Aram and I are both rocking your hats. Go get your rope hat in the episode description. You can find our shop in there. Of course, join our Discord if you're interested in joining the best baseball group chat in the world. It's the perfect time to join up until the trade deadline. And of course, the fallout from the draft, all of that going into the postseason. And if you don't want to spend a dime, perfectly understand. Just rate and review Spotify, Apple Podcasts, 5 stars. Subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube. For Aram Layton, the birthday boy, and I'm Peter Apple. Have a great weekend. And with that, thank you, everybody.